There is a hidden architecture to reality, a latticework of unseen forces woven not from stone or steel but from something far more elusive: words. Spoken, written, whispered, or etched into the silence of thought, words are the first and final sorcery. They shape worlds unseen, conjure emotions from the void, and bind the intangible into form. Consider this: every civilization, every revolution, every sacred text, every love letter, each began as a vibration in the throat, a symbol on a page, a spark in the mind. What, then, is the true nature of this power? And if such power exists, subtle yet infinite, how have we forgotten its weight in our hands? The secret power of words and spells is not confined to ancient grimoires or the chants of mystics. It lives in the ordinary, the mundane, the careless phrase that shatters a heart, the mantra that rebuilds a soul, the story that alters the course of history. Words are the unseen currency of reality, the silent architects of perception. A spell, after all, is only a word charged with intention, and language itself is the oldest magic, one we wield every day, often without knowing its depth. Think of the last time a single sentence changed you. Perhaps it was a line from a poem that unraveled your grief, a prophecy spoken in jest or earnest that later unfolded in your life, or even the idle words of a stranger that became a self-fulfilling decree. Language does not merely describe reality, it participates in its creation. The ancients knew this. The Vedas spoke of Vak, the divine word that brought forth existence. The Egyptians revered Heka, the force of utterance that animated the gods. The Gospel of John declared, "In the beginning was the Word." And yet, in our modern age, we have reduced speech to mere transaction, forgetting its alchemical potential. But what if we remembered? What if we reclaimed the hidden dimensions of language, not as superstition, but as a lost science of consciousness? This is not a call to abandon reason, but to expand it, to recognize that every syllable we release ripples through the fabric of the real, bending the unseen as surely as gravity bends light. A curse, a blessing, a vow, a lie. Each carries its own physics, its own consequence in the invisible architecture of things. If this resonates with you, if you feel the pull of this mystery, then you are already under the spell of curiosity, the first and most potent enchantment. I invite you to journey deeper into these revelations. If these words stir something within you, consider lending your energy to this exploration. Like, comment, share your thoughts, and subscribe to continue unraveling the hidden layers of existence together. Now the question hangs in the air between us, ripe with possibility. To speak of the secret power of words is to step into a realm where language is no longer a mere tool, but a living force, an ancient current running beneath the surface of human experience. It is the thread that stitches together thought and manifestation, the bridge between the invisible and the tangible. But what are the laws that govern this power? What truths, universal and unchanging, dictate whether a word falls dormant or erupts into being? At the heart of this mystery lies the principle of vibration. Every word, whether spoken aloud or held in silence, is a frequency, a ripple in the unseen fabric of existence. The ancients knew this well. The Hindu concept of Nada Brahma, the world is sound, proposes that creation itself is an emanation of resonant tones. The Hebrew tradition teaches that the letters of the alphabet are vessels of divine energy, each carrying a unique imprint of power. Even modern science acknowledges that matter, at its core, is not solid but vibrational. Words, then, are not passive symbols. They are activators, tuning forks that align reality with their pitch. But vibration alone is not enough. A word without intention is like a sword without a hand to wield it. Intention is the fire that tempers sound into spell. Consider the difference between a casual "I love you" and the same phrase spoken with the full weight of the soul behind it. One dissipates like mist, the other etches itself into memory, into destiny. This is why rituals across cultures, whether a shaman's chant, a poet's recitation, or a lover's vow, demand presence, focus, and emotional charge. The word becomes a vessel, and the intention is the lifeblood poured into it. Yet even intention requires a third element, belief. Not blind faith, but the deep, often unconscious conviction that words have weight. A curse only holds power if the one who speaks it and the one who hears it agree, on some level, to its reality. This is the secret behind placebo and nocebo effects. The body responds not to the chemical substance, but to the story told about it. Language, when believed, becomes law. Societies rise and fall on shared narratives. Identities solidify or dissolve based on the labels we accept. The spells we cast upon ourselves, "I am unworthy," "I am limitless," are the ones that shape us most profoundly. But here we encounter a paradox. If words are so potent, why do so many go unfulfilled? Why do prayers seem unanswered, affirmations unrealized? The answer lies in the shadow realm of resistance, the silent undercurrent of doubt, the unspoken counter-narratives that whisper beneath our declarations. A spell is not broken by external forces, but by the internal contradictions that dilute its power. To speak, "I am abundant," while clinging to a subconscious story of scarcity, is to send two opposing currents into the universe. The stronger current wins. And so we arrive at the final, most elusive truth. Words are not merely spoken, they are lived. The most powerful incantations are those that have seeped into the bones, the habits, the unthinking reflexes of being. A mantra repeated without feeling is hollow, but a single word, fully embodied, can shift the axis of a life. This is why the old magicians insisted on purity of speech, not as moral dogma, but as practical necessity. Every careless word drains power from the ones that matter. Every lie told weakens the integrity of one's own voice in the cosmos. We stand now at the threshold of deeper understanding. The core themes are laid bare: vibration, intention, belief, resistance, embodiment. But beyond these principles lie the stories, the myths, the living symbols that have carried this wisdom through the ages. There is a language older than words, a syntax of symbols, archetypes, and dreams that hums beneath the surface of human consciousness. To truly grasp the secret power of words and spells, we must descend into this mythic undercurrent, where meaning is not explained but experienced, where letters become living entities and stories become spells cast across generations. Consider the ancient Egyptian concept of Ren, the true name. It was believed that to know the true name of a thing, or a person, or a god, was to hold power over its essence. This was no mere superstition, but a profound recognition that identity is bound to vibration. To speak a name was to invoke the soul behind it. This is why the gods guarded their true names so jealously, and why, in the biblical tradition, the name of Yahweh was considered too sacred to utter aloud. Even today, we feel this truth instinctively. There is intimacy in the way lovers whisper each other's names, terror in hearing our own called out by an unknown voice in the dark. A name is not just a label, it is a summoning. Then there is the Norse myth of the runes. The god Odin, hanging for 9 nights on the world tree, pierced by his own spear in a shamanic ordeal to seize the secret of the runic alphabet. When the runes finally revealed themselves to him, they were not inert symbols but living forces, each one a crystallization of cosmic law. To carve a rune was not to write, but to invoke, to channel the primal energies of creation, destruction, and transformation. The rune Ansus, representing divine speech, was not merely about communication, it was the bridge between gods and men, the recognition that language is the medium through which higher consciousness descends into matter. In the Kabbalistic tradition, Hebrew letters are understood as the building blocks of existence. The Sefer Yetzirah, an ancient mystical text, describes how the divine used the 22 letters to weave the fabric of reality, each one a gate, a permutation of energy. The letter Aleph, silent and unpronounceable, is the breath before speech, the unmanifest potential from which all sounds emerge. Mem, the letter of water, holds the mysteries of the subconscious, the unspoken depths. When a Kabbalist meditates on these letters, they are not studying an alphabet, they are performing an act of cosmic remembrance, realigning themselves with the vibrations that birthed the world. Even fairy tales encode this wisdom. In Rumpelstiltskin, the miller's daughter triumphs by discovering the true name of her adversary, a metaphor for the power of precise language to dissolve illusions. In the Arabian Nights, entire realities are conjured with the phrase, "Open Sesame," a reminder that certain words act as keys to hidden dimensions. These stories are not childish fancies, but initiatory parables, teaching that mastery of language is mastery over reality itself. And what of modern times? The myths have not vanished, they have simply taken new forms. The concept of abracadabra, once a healing incantation meant to unravel disease, now survives as stage magic, yet its root meaning, "I create as I speak," still pulses beneath the surface. The spells of old have become the affirmations, mantras, and even the advertising slogans of today, proving that the human mind remains as susceptible as ever to the enchantment of repeated phrases. These symbolic narratives are not relics of a bygone era, but living echoes of a perennial truth. Words are the interface between the seen and the unseen. To study them is to study the hidden levers of existence. We have wandered through the realms of vibration and myth, but now we arrive at the most pressing question. How does this ancient wisdom live in our modern bones? If words truly shape reality, then every conversation, every thought given voice, every unspoken belief humming beneath the surface, becomes an act of creation or destruction. This is not abstract philosophy. It is the undercurrent of your daily life, the invisible hand that molds your relationships, your health, your destiny. Consider first the simplest magic you perform without realizing it, the stories you tell about yourself. Every time you say, "I'm terrible with names," or "money never comes easily to me," you are not describing reality, you are drafting its blueprint. Neurologically, these declarations reinforce neural pathways, shaping your brain's architecture. Spiritually, they function as binding spells, limiting what the universe can deliver through you. The remedy is not empty affirmations chanted without conviction, but the careful, conscious curation of your inner dialogue. Start by observing the phrases that slip from your lips in unguarded moments. Those are your true incantations. Then there is the alchemy of conversation. Most people treat speech as if it were neutral, harmless, but every exchange is an energy transaction. Gossip, for instance, is often dismissed as petty, yet esoteric traditions have long warned that speaking ill of others creates subtle cords of entanglement, draining both speaker and subject. Conversely, words of genuine appreciation act as blessings, amplifying the good they describe. This is why many spiritual traditions emphasize right speech, not as moral restriction, but as practical wisdom. Before speaking, ask, does this need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? Does it need to be said now? 3 questions that could prevent 1,000 unintended curses. The digital age has added new dimensions to this power. Social media posts, text messages, even emojis carry vibrational weight, perhaps more than we realize. A hastily typed insult lingers in cyberspace like a toxic sigil, while a heartfelt message can uplift someone across continents. Consider too the phenomenon of manifestation journals and digital vision boards, modern equivalents of spellbooks, where intention is focused through written word and image. The medium has changed, but the principle remains. Focused language, repeated with conviction, alters reality. But what of the spells cast upon us? Advertising jingles we can't forget, political slogans that shape collective belief, the relentless narratives of news cycles, these are the collective incantations of our time. To navigate this, we must become literate in linguistic self-defense. Just as you wouldn't swallow food without discernment, not all words should be allowed to take root in your psyche. The practice of inner silence, whether through meditation, nature immersion, or digital fasting, creates a buffer against unwanted mental programming. Perhaps the most immediate application lies in healing. Medical science now confirms what shamans knew. Patients recover faster when spoken to with empathy and hope. The placebo effect is nothing less than the measurable power of belief, triggered often by a doctor's words. You can harness this for yourself. When in pain, try whispering to your body, not fighting it, but directing it with firm kindness, as you would a child. Chronic illness often contains an unspoken story. Changing the narrative can sometimes alter the biology. In relationships, words act as either bridges or walls. Couples who regularly express gratitude experience deeper bonds, not because the words are magic in themselves, but because they focus attention on what thrives rather than what withers. Even arguments can be alchemized when "you always" becomes "I feel," a simple shift that transforms blame into vulnerable truth. Telling. The workplace too is a cauldron of spells. Mission statements that inspire versus corporate jargon that deadens. The difference between a leader's vision that lifts teams and a manager's criticism that demoralizes. All demonstrate that organizational culture is built largely through language. Those who understand this wield influence far beyond their title. As you move through your days now, begin to notice, really notice, the texture of the words around you. The slogans on billboards, the lyrics stuck in your head, the offhand remarks you make waiting for coffee. Each is programming some corner of your reality. The question is no longer, do words have power, but what world am I speaking into existence? We stand now at the precipice of revelation, where all that we've explored, the vibrations, the myths, the daily alchemies, coalesces into a single undeniable truth. You are already a magician of the spoken word. Every sentence you've ever uttered was a spell cast upon the world. Every silent thought, a whispered incantation. The question that remains is not whether words hold power, but whether you will wield that power with wisdom or continue to let it wield you unconsciously. Consider the cumulative effect of a lifetime's language. The jokes you repeated until they became your identity, the offhand curses muttered in traffic that shaped your days, the love letters, both given and withheld, that altered destinies. Your biography is written not just in events, but in the phrases that echoed through them, the mantras of your parents, the taunts of your childhood, the vows you made to yourself in moments of despair or triumph. This is the real magic, not some esoteric ritual, but the living narrative you've been composing with your breath since first you learned to speak. Yet here lies the glorious paradox. You can begin rewriting the story today, not by denying your current reality, but by speaking to it differently. The addict who stops saying, "I am an addict," and begins declaring, "I am in recovery," has not lied, but shifted the trajectory of their becoming. The weary worker who replaces, "I'm stuck," with, "I'm preparing for what's next," hasn't changed their circumstances yet, but has altered the psychic soil from which those circumstances grow. Language doesn't impose reality, it invites it. This is why all great spiritual traditions emphasize sacred speech. The Buddhists practice right speech, avoiding falsehoods and harmful words. The ancient Egyptians had hika, the correct utterance that made magic effective. Even in the scientific realm, cognitive behavioral therapy proves that changing language patterns can rewire the brain itself. The common thread is clear. Transformation requires new words, not as superficial affirmations, but as deliberate, embodied declarations that gradually dismantle old worlds and midwife new ones into being. So I offer you this final invocation, not as a conclusion, but as a commencement. May you become a conscious architect of your words, knowing each one builds the home your soul inhabits. May you speak to yourself with the reverence of a high priestess consecrating a temple. May your curses transform into blessings, your complaints into invocations for change. May you listen, truly listen, to the spells others cast around you, choosing which to take into your being and which to let pass like wind through branches. And when you encounter those perfect, fleeting moments where silence says more than speech ever could, may you have the wisdom to let the mystery speak for itself. The journey doesn't end here. It begins anew each time you open your mouth or set pen to paper. If this exploration has stirred something in you, I invite you to continue the conversation. Share your experiences in the comments, speak these truths to others ready to hear them, and subscribe for deeper dives into the hidden architectures of existence. For now, though, the last word belongs to you. What spell will you cast next?